you everyone for coming. I'm Sarah Fosuama. I'm a member of the board of the library, and we are just incredibly grateful to the programming committee for continuing every week to bring us really interesting programming. I heard an undisclosed audience member say they haven't been in the library since the 1980s, and that's exactly the point of these events, is to bring in people from all different parts of the island to this wonderful institution. So thank you all for your support. In the event that you would like to make a donation, we are always excited about that. And next Tuesday, August 26th, Jeb Cook is going to share stories of his catamaran adventure. And on Wednesday, August 27th, Beatrice Williams will join Liz Cook in conversation about our newest novel, Under the Stars. So once again, thank you to the programming committee for putting together such a wonderful lineup this summer. Tonight, we are very pleased to welcome acclaimed actress Gretchen Mol as she shares her thoughts on how portraying iconic women throughout her career, from the cult classic Rounders to Boardwalk Empire to the Notorious Bettie Page, led her to her latest venture, her own clothing line, Gretchen M. She is an accomplished actress of the stage and both film and television screens. She was born and raised across the Sound in Deep River, Connecticut, and she studied musical theater at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York City, and then went on to study at the William Esper Studio. She began working in summer stock theaters, namely the Dorset Theater in Dorset, Vermont, and then booked her first commercials, which fortuitously were for McDonald's and Coca-Cola. Gretchen has acted in 59 projects and was most recently in Millers in Marriage, directed by Ed Burns. Last summer, she filmed Horse Girls, which recently premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. Perhaps she is most known for her portrayal of Gillian Darmody on the HBO series Boardwalk Empire, for which she shares 2 SAG Awards for Outstanding Ensemble Cast. Gretchen, her husband Kip Williams, and her children moved to the Berkshires in 2020 from New York City and are wonderful members of the Fishers Island community. So thank you so much, Gretchen, for being here.
Thank you so much. That's such a warm welcome. I just want to thank everyone for coming out. When Courtney asked me if I would like to talk, I did tell her, I'm used to saying other people's lines. And I'm also used to doing a kind of talk after if there's a movie or something, and so there's generally a Q&A, and it's about the movie, which I'm more comfortable talking about. So I really had to think, what would I like to speak on? And it came to me that it should be about a creative life, because that's something that I know. I don't have always all of my ideas formulated about it, but it has been sort of my pursuit. And here I am. I've have had a lovely career as an actor. Can be frustrating at times too, but it's one that I feel very proud of. And in the lull of COVID, having had this idea about creating a dress line, or just at least one dress. It was really about one dress, which I'll get to. It was 10 years on thinking about it and talking about it. And finally, during that time, during COVID, when we moved out of the city and into the Berkshires, I had sort of the mental space to think about it and actually put action to my words. And so a couple of years later, last December, I finally launched Gretchen M. And it's been a really great feeling for me because it's my own. And the thing about my acting career is that I always had to wait for other people to hire me. And as much as I love doing it, it could be kind of, there's ebbs and flows. So I thought, because we're in a library space, that I would open with a little essay that I wrote. I also took a writing class during COVID when I wasn't working. I just felt a little restless and thought maybe that would be my next thing. And I found this essay, as I was thinking about this, and it does kind of speak to both of the things that I'm doing now. So I'll just share it with you, and then hopefully we'll get into a bigger conversation, and excuse these dorky reading glasses, but I couldn't find my more fashionable ones. Okay. And this was the prompt for the writing class was about a box that you haven't opened in a while. They said, write about a box that you haven't opened. So this came to me. I've always loved dressing up. I love clothes. I used to pick out my outfits for school the night before. I didn't have a ton of choices, but I loved finding a new accessory from my mom's top drawer, a bandana or something that would change the whole story. I would save a cardboard box, put a few items of clothing in it, and play movie star. I'd address the box to myself and set it outside of my bedroom door. As rehearsals were going on in my bedroom and the showtime was getting close, I'd swing open my bedroom door to discover the clothes that had been magically delivered in the box for my performance that evening. So by the time this kind of event and getting dressed up for it became a reality in my adult life, it was loaded. It was part of the dream coming true. Going to a premiere or an awards show and all that it entailed should be fun and exciting. But as I said, it was loaded. The truth is, it used to be fun. In the early days, my first forays onto a red carpet, I would go to Intermix, which wasn't yet a chain, and splurge on some amazing frock. I didn't worry about the jewels or the bag. I just did my own hair and makeup and would feel pretty damn good. Somewhere along the line, it all changed. If you're in the game now, the production company will pay for a stylist. They will provide some amount of money, and within that, you are off to the races. But the best stylists with the access to the best options are expensive. Sure, you can get creative and try to go it alone. I've done that, but you quickly realize that having the resources and pulling options and tailoring and the list goes on can become a full-time job. It quickly takes the fun out of it. There is a factory feel to it now. Stylists have relationships with certain designers, so they might pressure you into an ugly designer dress that has nothing to do with your shape or style because of that relationship. A fashion house might be saving the coolest, most drop-dead dress tried on and fitted, only to be told I wouldn't be able to wear it after all. Instead, they pulled this one from the archives. I should be grateful, right? But if you feel like you're getting the dregs, you look like the dregs, even if it's Chanel. The whole thing starts to feel like an exercise in battling a certain humiliation. My instincts tend to get all muddled up during this process. I struggle not to feel buried under the various outside influences. When I look in the mirror, I don't see myself looking back. Once the hair is curled and sprayed, it doesn't resemble anything remotely reminding me of hair. A hat, maybe. A very hard hat with waves. But it's too late to start over. The clock is ticking. Time to get in the car. It occurs to me that I will never get this right if I don't willfully let go of that magical fairy tale feeling I used to have when I discovered the box outside of my bedroom door. After all, it was me who put it there. Thank you. Anyway, so speaking of putting it there, that was me sort of, I guess, a lot of my career spent sort of somewhat feeling out of your control because, you always say, I'm going to choose the best projects. I want to work with the best people, the best directors. And it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes it's just what comes along. And you haven't worked in a while, and it's shooting in your backyard, and they're going to pay you, and it's time to go to work. So it becomes, a real practical thing, and I actually appreciate that part of it. But I think for me, this idea of starting something of my own, of owning my own business, was really about finding my voice and not being afraid to just take the leap. And I think that is part of sort of a lesson that I've learned over and over again. I have to be reminded sometimes, but it is like taking that leap of faith when you don't know how far the fall is going to be. You don't have to have everything in place, and it doesn't have to be perfect before you just jump in, and then you'll kind of like muddle and figure it out along the way. And I feel like I have spent a lot of my career doing that. So, but it's good. Anyway, so actually, and also thinking about being here in this library, a little bit of some books. One of the books that really inspired me during COVID, when I was considering this next sort of expansion into doing this line, was a book by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Big Magic. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And I was listening to it as an audiobook in the car, and there were just each, when you have a book like that and each thing is like pinging you, and the whole thing of it was about, a lot of it was about fearlessness, and which is sort of obvious, but when you hear it, spoken in your ear at a time when you're considering doing something, it can really help. And it was also that acceptance of the unknown, that basically everything in life, we never know, right, what's going to happen next, right? So as you move on in life, you do accept that more, that there will be loss, there will be surprises, everything you planned didn't quite work out the way you thought, or something else came up in front of your path, and that like snowballed into a whole new thing. But I think I felt, at least when I was young and first starting out, a little more of that like holding on tight grip to trying to make the right choices and do the right thing. And I think that the best things that have happened in my career have been those happy accidents, or those things that I didn't expect. So I want to talk a little bit about the early creative sparks. So I was always told that I came from a creative household. That was what people would say to me when I was young, and it was because my mom taught at Norwich Free Academy. She was an art teacher for 26 years, and she was a painter and an artist in her own right. And she never did her artwork for sales. I think back on her, and I think she would have liked to have done that. And I remember her going into the city and having a couple odd things that didn't quite work out, where she spoke to gallery owners, and she was such a shy person. It was really hard for her to come out in that way and promote her own work and kind of get that part of it going. And so she became an amazing teacher. I still get the letters from her students every time I post an image or anything, just talking about how special and how much she changed their lives. And she really always was my North Star as far as a kind of person I could talk to about what I was doing. And she didn't really know how to sort of mentor me, but she really did, without even meaning to, just by her example. Because I remember from a very early age coming into the living room and seeing her back to me at her easel, and I knew that she was painting, and that somehow I intuited that she was in that kind of creative zone, and that I felt the peace of that for her. And it didn't ever feel that I couldn't approach her or interrupt her or anything. It was more that I felt her just so engaged in something. And I think seeing that, years later, it gave me the permission to do that myself, right? So once you have children, there's a sort of feeling of, is this frivolous, this creative endeavor? I mean, yes, sometimes it pays the bills, and that's really important. But this other thing for me with this dress line was taking the time to do something and put energy and effort and time into something that I don't necessarily know if it will be profitable, if it will work out, and really sort of treating those things with respect and honoring that process. And I think having seen my mom at that easel really shaped my idea of how important it is and also to impart that on your own children, that kind of alignment that deep creativity can bring, and how it's almost sacred. I really do believe that it's a sacred space, and that it's, having kind of a room of one's own. That's always stayed with me, and I search for it. I want it, and you can't be in that place all the time. But I think I got that sort of from my mother, and but I also feel like, when you look around the island, you see creativity everywhere. That's what's also been very inspiring to me about my time on Fisher's Island is, I've been coming here for 17 years, so I still consider myself a newbie, and that it can be whatever. It's that onion, right? Like it can be, we just go to Dock Beach and we just do family things, or you can be super social. But there's also this very clear artistic bent and appreciation of the arts here. And it's surprising, the nights, the other night and all of that. I just, so I feel inspired to be here. I also feel that bringing my dresses, I was very nervous to do that. And in July, we had this pop-up at Gussie's studio, and it was like the support from the community for this kind of thing is just so beautiful, and for somebody trying something new. So that's really inspiring. So that just kind of keeps me going. Anyway, I did not mean to go off on that tangent. I'm just talking about the early creative sparks. So back to the acting career. And this is a sort of through line too, and it's also part of the book, the Elizabeth Gilbert book, which is that when kind of going into a creative endeavor, think about the things that you love to do when you were a child, because those are the things that are going to delight you. So doing this dress line, there's a lot of it that's hard and scary and that I don't know and that I didn't know I was going to have to do. Like, I hate Instagram. I mean, I kind of hate it, but I have to do it now because it's like where I'm, so, but the thing that makes me excited is setting up the little shop down there by the ferry and going in and sort of decorating it and putting up the things and, ordering a rug off Amazon and sort of just picturing it. I think that kind of part of it is so fun to me, and it makes me feel like that little girl that used to play store with my friend Nicole, and we would hang the clothes around and put little tags on them and pretend she was the customer and I'm the salesperson or whatever. And so it's sort of not, there's no mistakes, it's sort of like you end up doing these things because, I read something that I was reading this interview. Jamaica Kincaid was in the New York Times the other day, and she was talking about having this theory that you are who you are at 7. Now, I don't know how she came up with 7 years old, but that then you just keep repeating it until you die. And that resonated with me somehow, because I do think we are always just sort of looking at our stuff again. Everything is sort of like through a kaleidoscope, and that prism that sort of shifts in time. One story, one trauma, one thing looks different every 7 years when you have new experiences, and you kind of always look back on those things that happened. And anyway, I think that's kind of a beautiful idea, and that can kind of get us to where we can discover these parts of ourselves, these creative links inside of us. So the acting journey, and then I think I want to talk a little bit about my own acting journey and how then it kind of expanded into this dress line. When I was very young, I think back again to first grade, so I was 7 or 8, and I remember we were learning about the sun and the earth going around the sun, and that was a song, and it was who wants to be the sun?